the process of growth. In Instagram, you see like self-care Sundays and everything is shiny and beautiful. It takes effort, but effort is not the same as suffering. And I think it's engraved in our heads that effort is suffering. It is not. It's just taking little steps.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Laura, I am excited for our conversation today, and we'll make sure it's a very conscious and mindful one. But before we jump into everything that you're doing and your work, how would you describe yourself?
So I am a lively clinical psychologist. I absolutely love my work. It has brought me so much connection, and I think that's what I seek the most, connection with people. So I'm really excited to be here talking to you and sharing a little bit about our work and my work personally. So thank you so much for having me.
It is certainly my pleasure. And we are incredibly social creatures. As you probably know, one of our 5 pillars of Healthspan is social connection. So love to hear that on the connection side. And let's talk a little bit about the work that you do. And it's really in a spot that's gotten a lot more attention in the past few years. I think back to my grandparents' generation and the culture around drinking and the 3 martini lunch and the martini parties. And I got stories of my father when he was 2 walking around a party and everybody thought it was so cute giving him sips of their martinis. And he was just absolutely plastered and had to stay awake because they were worried what would happen to him as a child. And now there's this whole sober curious movement. And I think it was Andrew Huberman's podcast a couple of years ago really turned the tables on alcohol. And now alcohol sales are way down and drinking's way down. So can you talk a little bit about your work in the realm of alcohol and alcohol consumption?
Of course. And I agree with you. Like the realm of alcohol has been changing a lot in the past few years. Now we have all this movement of California sober or sobriety or abstinence. And there's no one path, not like white or black situation. It's more of like, which one aligns better with you, with your psyche, with how you feel and how you set your boundaries. So it's very interesting to have these conversations because, yeah, it's not one fits all. Sometimes we would have thought that alcohol, you have to cut it out completely. Or some others, it's like, no, I can't cut it out because it's part of me. So when you start talking about alcohol, you see all this cultural references, as you were mentioning. It's part of the day-to-day. You're sad, drink something to relax. Or you're happy and you want to celebrate, have a glass of champagne. So it's really mind-blowing to see how alcohol has infiltrated our culture, and how nowadays a lot of people are more conscious about what's happening to your body when you're drinking and what's happening to your mind when you're drinking. And people have started to ask the question, oh, why am I drinking? Like, is it a Band-Aid for a bullet wound? And sometimes the drinking was a solution to a problem, to like social anxiety or stress, or, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable, so I'm just going to take the edge off and I'm going to have a drink. And it became a coping mechanism. So, of course, it's something very important to talk about nowadays.
It's interesting. I don't know if I ever thought of it personally as a social crutch or anything. I mean, it certainly seemed fun when I was drinking when I was younger. And then as I got older, I felt so bad the next day. Mm-hmm. And so I just started putting in new rules. So we'd go out late and I'd say, hey, you know what? I'll just stop drinking after midnight. Mm-hmm. And that was slightly better. It's like, okay, well, what if I just stop drinking after we leave the house party? So if we go to a bar later, I just don't have any alcohol there. I'll just order water. And then I just kept backing it until I just wasn't drinking anymore. And I realized I have just as much fun. I think I associated because it would be in environments with friends that were fun. And it was this association more that I thought, hey, this is what made it fun. But it was just another ingredient, but it didn't seem to add. And it certainly, for me at least, was taking away in the future. So I don't know. Everybody has their own relationship with alcohol, I'm sure. But I don't know what you've seen with the people you work with.
So as you said, like some people see it as, oh, everyone is here. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And of course, if you enjoy it, if you enjoy the taste of a glass of wine, of course, like go ahead. The thing is that a lot of people do see it as a crutch, as, it makes me a little bit more fun to be around with. It takes the edge off. It makes me have a better and fluid conversation. And those are the people that are coming to my therapy. And those are the people that I'm seeing like on a daily basis, which is, hey, like I've seen that I've started to drink a little bit more because I associate being more relaxed and more confident with drinking. But the thing is that whenever we drink, the prefrontal cortex alcohol creates like a chemical buffer. So it kind of is like your prefrontal cortex just like goes a little bit offline. So that internal critic that you have kind of goes offline as well. So a lot of people do have a trouble with that internal critic. And it's easier to, you know what, I'm going to numb it a little bit, just have fun in this situation. But of course, it creates this mind fog that the next day you feel tired, you feel hangover, you feel, of course, a lot of people say, like, even when I go out late at night and I don't drink anything, if I am not sleeping, I feel hangover. And of course, we're more in tune with our bodies now. And now we're seeing alcohol as maybe it's not that fun, not at the moment, but afterwards. So I kind of put it into a balance in how would I want to see myself now and in the future next day, you know? So I think it's according to each person. And what you said, some people see it as fun and can have and set boundaries for themselves. Some other people have a little bit more trouble with it. And those are the ones that I see daily on the practice.
On the fun side, I'm curious what you've seen, because I've certainly heard from people, I do it because I'm more fun. I feel like I can't be fun without this. And the perception from other people a lot of times is, no, I don't really like you when you drink. Like, I like you much better when you're not drinking. But the story you're telling yourself is I'm more fun. And this isn't a perfect analogy, but I had heard people see a guy driving a really expensive, fancy car. And they're like, that I want to get that so I can look cool. And then you ask the guy, you're like, do you think that guy is cool because he has a car? You're like, oh no, that guy's kind of pathetic that he has a car, but I think I would be cool if I had that car. And so we have this perception of, hey, I'm more fun, but other people see us like, no, you're not. You're kind of a jerk or whatever it is. And is there this disconnect on who we see ourselves as and who we are in those times?
For sure. I agree. And that's a perfect analogy, what you're saying. It's, as I was saying, the prefrontal cortex kind of goes offline. And this part of our brains is super important because it gives us like the rationality and kind of like that grounding of where am I, who am I, and how am I feeling? And it connects a lot with your body and your body sensations. So whenever you're drinking and that part of your brain goes offline, you disconnect from that internal critic, but also step away from yourself and your identity, and you start saying things without inhibition. And yeah, sometimes it could be funny. Some people are funny, but most of the time it could be like, oh, that comment was not needed, or yeah, you were acting weird yesterday, or you were acting out of your character. So it's, of course, that disconnect from the rational part of you, and that fogginess that creates the distance between who you are and the behavior you're having. And it's important to know that you are not defined by your behaviors, of course. And yeah, sometimes people can drink a little bit more and have a behavior that it's the next day, it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. That disaligned with who I am. And that's guilt right there. It's, oh, I feel guilty. I did something. I made a mistake. But there are some other people that assume that whenever those situations happen, they say, oh, I am the mistake, right? And there's a big difference. There's a big difference. So the I am the mistake, it's like, oh, yeah, maybe I drank more than I should have. And next time I'll create some boundaries. As you were saying, I'll stop drinking if we leave the house party and we're going to a bar, from the bar and forward, I'm going to drink water. And some other times it's like, okay, I'm going to like seek for connection. And I'm going to tell the person I was talking to, like, hey, I'm sorry. I know I was out of line. And that kind of like creates that making amends or building a bridges back on that you kind of burned, or air quotes burned, during that conversation. But with shame, it's a totally different thing, because we are saying that instead of I made a mistake, I am the mistake. And that's when we really do need to seek for connection with people who we love and people who we share, and that vitamin person. Because that's the downward spiral that we get into. And that's where our inner critic, the one that we numb through alcohol, comes back online stronger than ever and creates that downward spiral in your head. So it's that moment where we seek connection with that community, with a person, or within ourselves, with different practices. So we can start practicing gratitude, meditation, or journaling to connect once again and get out of that shame feeling or emotion.
On that, I'm curious, because you hear that alcohol lowers your inhibitions, right? So you may have societal layers that you've put on yourself on what's okay or appropriate to say or do in this situation. And in some ways, people say, hey, you're not yourself when you drink. You're this different one. Or are you more yourself because you've lowered these inhibitions? You had these things that were suppressing who you were. And it's probably not a clean answer, but are you closer to the real you when you pull those away, or are you getting further away from the real you? Is there an answer there?
So yeah, that's a tricky question, but I enjoy those questions, because yeah, it lowers your inhibitions, of course, but you also are not being on the, let's say this metaphor, you're not the pilot, or you're not driving your car. Something else is driving it, right? So it's not that you're stepping into I'm driving my own car and I'm being the pilot. You're letting alcohol being the driver. And in the other situations, you're letting the culture drive you. So both of them would be you're stepping away from who you are. Different perspectives are driving you, but not you. So that's my answer to the question.
Okay, and so this is interesting, because this, I think, ties a little bit to some of the stuff we were talking about before with mindfulness and consciousness and autopilot. versus consciously making these decisions. And so in both those cases, if you're not mindfully steering yourself, you're, I guess, mindlessly navigating through the lens of society or through the lens of alcohol. And I guess the counter way of doing that is to consciously step into how you want to steer and drive and where you want to go. So can you talk about that, like what that means to you, and then how you might help clients make that shift?
Of course. So that's a beautiful way to put it. And it's, step into your consciousness. And what that means really is ask yourself the questions of, why am I doing this? Why am I deciding to behave like this or say those things or act a certain way? Usually, when we don't ask ourselves the question, we are doing it in autopilot. And the question is, do we really believe in autopilot? Do we really, really trust autopilot to make decisions for our life? Usually not, right? Sometimes we're using a third party, let's say, to make decisions for our life. And maybe that's not what really aligns to us. So how I approach this with my clients usually is, let's ask and let's talk about your desires, not what's expected from you, what you should be doing, but what you get to do. What do you want to do? When you ask those questions, it can be semantics really, but it rephrase the lens through how you're seeing your life really. So it starts with that, those conscious questions about yourself, about your behavior, about your thoughts. And sometimes those questions need to be asked without like those buffers that could be, for example, alcohol, because you will be seeing it through a different lens. So it starts with that. It starts with the conscious question and being mindful, because there's a thing that we hear a lot about, mindfulness, and I think a lot of podcasts talk about it, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful practice. And I think that our society has stopped the ability to be bored or to just do one thing at a time, because we're always doing multiple things at a time. And I recently heard this. I just finished my yoga teacher training, and they teach you about meditation and mindfulness, and it's beautiful. And someone said, like, how about just washing the dishes? It's just washing the dishes. You don't have to be productive. You don't have to be doing a lot of stuff while you're washing the dishes. Just do it. Right? Or what about peeling an orange? It's just peeling an orange. So I thought it was so beautiful, because it's that way of like, oh, maybe I just have to recenter, come back to me, and ask the mindful questions without my attention being pulled 1,000 different directions. So I think it really ties with meditation, and it's a very powerful tool. And a lot of people think that meditation is something that you have to put your mind completely blank, sit down, completely quiet, and not let any thought disturb you. And I have a thing that I say, and it's, your heart is meant to be beating, your lungs are meant to be breathing, your mind, it's meant to think. It's going to happen. It's not to put your mind in blank, but it's not getting attached to those thoughts. And that's the main thing. Don't get attached to those thoughts. They come and they go. They're not you.
Most corporate wellness programs overwhelm employees with too much, or they offer too little to be useful. Lively gets it right. We start with each employee's data and goals, then serve one clear, personalized action at a time. No noise, just real behavioral change. The outcome? A healthier, happier workforce and measurable impact for your business. Visit alively.com to see personalized wellness in action.
I'm curious on this, the mindfulness, the presence, right? Being present is very powerful. On the mindfulness, it can be exhausting to consciously have to make every decision. And so is there a time and place for autopilot? So I think maybe with alcohol consumption or food, for anything, but let's go through the lens of alcohol, where if you, depending on what your relationship is with it, and anytime you go out to dinner, anytime you go out with friends, anytime you go to a party, every single interaction, you're having to consciously decide, okay, do I do this or not? Do I do this or not? Versus you have one point of conscious awareness and decision making. Say, you know what? I'm going to have one night a week where I allow myself 2 drinks. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the time it's on autopilot. And so it's always going to be no. So I'm not thinking. And on that one night, I'm saying yes. And then the rest, no, versus every single time where I get this decision fatigue. What do you think about that? This, I guess, contextual autopilot versus mindful decision making.
For sure. And you bring up a great point where it's, the decision fatigue. If I'm being conscious all of the time, it can be exhausting. It can be just draining, and it can easily go into an overthinking. So there are certain moments that you get to peak during the day, right? Like sitting down and think about that. And maybe you can schedule it in. I think a lot of people, I'm that type of person that I have everything scheduled in my Google Calendar. It's there, right? So I have times set during the day of hey, I'm going to do a mindful 30 minutes where I sit down, I journal, I meditate, or I do a light stretching. Those moments, if you have those moments spread out throughout the day, or if you have it as for example, a morning practice every single day, when you are faced in situations where, I'm going out with friends and I know which are my boundaries and how many glasses I can do and I can have, that's awesome, because you don't have to be thinking, should I say yes? Should I say no? You have your boundaries set, but you do need to have those moments prior. So there's a thing that it's before you go out, before you're in this space that can be stressful or can be just, you have that social pressure of you're not going to drink. How come? We're celebrating. Those type of comments, you can, okay, I know my friends, I know the place I'm at. I'm going to be in a safe place, but still I'm going to understand how I'm feeling and what do I need. If I feel like drinking 1 glass, awesome. And hold myself accountable for that 1 glass. If not, and if maybe I'm feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit stressed, and I think alcohol will make me feel more anxious or more stressed, maybe that day you say, no, I'm not drinking. And I think it's very important as a society not to pressure those who are not drinking. You don't know what's going on in somebody else's head. And I think it became a regular practice. Sometimes it's we're celebrating, come on. And it's, just understand that a no means a no. And it's their internal thoughts process. And
it's a funny thing that it was ever thought appropriate or acceptable to pressure someone. So if you're going out to eat and someone orders chicken, another person fish, and another person beef, right? Mm-hmm. 3 different, it's oh, no. You really need to have beef, or you really need to have chicken. Why would you need to push this person's drinking water versus wine? Why would you need to push that thing? It's strange that ever became a thing. Yeah. I am this lens, though it applies to alcohol, it really is helpful, I think, for any aspect of health on the decision fatigue. I years ago, someone talked about he makes better decisions earlier in the day. So when he had a work dinner, in the morning, he would always look at the menu for the restaurant and decide at that point what he was going to order. Because he would
Wow.
make good, healthy decisions then. And so when he got to the restaurant, he wouldn't look at the menu because he knew late in the day, Thor would make bad decisions. But early in the day, Thor was very thoughtful and would make really good decisions. And so it could work on nutrition. And same on fitness, where you say, hey, no, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I get up at this time and I go to the gym. And then to your point, maybe there's times of consciousness of, I have an injury today or there's something going on. Maybe this is an exception, but otherwise I'm running on autopilot so that I can reserve that cognitive capacity to be mindful, to make the tough decisions on things that really need it versus,
For sure. And there's something that you say there that I think it's so important. And I do this like analogy that it's like computer programmers. They run the program and they see a bug. So they have to go back, recode, run the program again. And they have to do it a couple of times until that is the coding that stays and they can move on. That is what we're trying to do. When you're doing stuff in autopilot, you got to ask yourself the question like, hey, is this autopilot really serving me? And maybe the answer would be no. Like, it's not serving me. I'm not making choices that align with my priorities and my values and however I'm feeling like. So maybe I do have to ask myself the conscious question of how do I align with this? And at first, it has to be a conscious thing of, oh yeah, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I am going to the gym and do weightlifting. That's part of my new routine. After a while, that becomes the autopilot. And that's what we're trying to make, right? That this conscious choice now becomes something so engraved and wired within us that it's not heavy anymore. And that's the first answer when you are asked the question or are facing a situation like this.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be baked for a period of time and then maybe it's not serving you anymore. Maybe after a year, maybe after a month or 3 months, like me, it was, hey, it's after midnight. Oh, let me reassess. Maybe it's after I leave the house. And so that's a thing, at least I do on my own calendar, is reassessing every 3 months on what, because I do, you talked about how you book everything in your calendar. And so I do this zero-based calendaring where I think about how much time do I want to allocate to work versus sleep, to family versus friends, to exercise, and design out the calendar. But just because that was right in 2023 doesn't mean it's right in 2025. And so it needs some periodic mindfulness to say, okay, what do I want to make autopilot now based on what my priorities are?
For sure. And there's something that it's so important to know is that we are dynamic creatures. As well as we're social creatures, we're dynamic creatures. And we change our minds and we see new things, and maybe that changes our perspective. And that's awesome that we get to change our perspective. It's so beautiful that we get to face our days curiously and see what brings the day. And at the end, it's like, okay, maybe I can add this to my routine, and maybe this is not serving me anymore. And that's great too, because that is the process of growing. That's the process of being a dynamic creature as well. So sometimes we are very strict into, we have to be coherent and we have to like have everything set up for our lives until we're 100 years old. That's impossible. We don't know that. We don't know that. We have the day to day.
Yeah.
And that's what we have. And maybe what you said, you have calendar blocks every 3 months to reassess. And it's like, okay, this 3 months, I've focused on this. How do I want it to be the next 3 months? And I think it's really cool that if you think about it, 3 months, it's really a short period of time. And it's wonderful because you get to, okay, I get to try out a new thing and let's see what sticks.
And speaking of trying new things and tools, can you talk a little bit about unconscious moderation? So we talked about some of the things you can put in your life. What are the tools that you can and do use in your practice to kind of help people with this?
Unconscious moderation is this app. It was created, of course, to help people to moderate, as the title of the app is. And what we understand by moderation is be conscious about your day to day and your decision making. So it's to moderate alcohol intake, but we've seen that this app really helps with moderation in a lot of aspects in your life. So it has three main pillars. So the first one would be hypnotherapy. And it's not the magic tricks that you see in Vegas where people are doing like some crazy things. It's actually a very guided deep meditation. So a 20-minute meditation where you are guided through different aspects of your life. It could be childhood, it could be decision making, it could be happiness, it could be shame and guilt, a lot of things that as humans we experience. So it gets you into this deep meditation practice. It's guided, so you don't have to I have to ask myself these questions and I don't know what question should I ask next. Completely, you put on the headphones and you kind of surrender to the practice and the relaxation. Then you have also the movement part. We really do believe that the phrase move a muscle, change a thought, it's very important too. So when you are actively moving, you also are actively connecting to your body. So when you're actively in tune with your body, whenever you're drinking, you feel like, okay, I'm getting to the point of I'm starting to feel a little bit dizzy, or, oh, maybe this is my last glass because my body, I'm feeling a little bit out of my body and I don't like that sensation. So this is my last glass. So that's why we incorporate the movement as our second pillar. And then our third pillar is journaling. So a lot of the times our thoughts go way too fast. Have you experienced you have one thought and it just continues and snowball effect into an avalanche? And what we think about journaling is that your hand can't go as fast, right? So what you need to do is just sit down and write. And we give you prompts for you to, of course, think about those aspects of your life. And it's a 90-day program, which helps you day by day guide you into this deep conscious questions. And that's what I was saying, hey, set up 30 minutes of your day, do a light stretch, journal a little bit, do a guided meditation, you're on your way. You had your 30 minutes to align with yourself. So the next couple of hours that you're working or you're spending with friends or with family, something that you can do easily because you know what's the goal for today. And this app really brings all of this together, sends you reminders, it gives you a full path 90 days, and it's really about building habits. So you can change one habit for another one. So one habit that brings you a little bit of uncertainty or makes you feel a little bit of comfortable after you made the decision to drink, to a habit of hey, I'm feeling comfortable, I'm feeling calm, I feel that I know the next step in my day. So it's habit changing.
Yeah. And we talk about all the time that transformation doesn't happen from these big heroic acts. It's from these tiny incremental steps consistently pursued and followed through on that leads to that transformation, because it happens over time. You see someone, and this is a tough thing with social media, with the internet, where you're promised oh, in 2 weeks you get this 6-pack, or 2 weeks you lose 30 pounds from this magic program. And that's not realistically how it happens. It's sustained effort, but it has to be, the only way it's sustainable for you is at the right pace, in the right step. So if it's huge steps and after 3 days you're going to fall off, that's not going to get you anywhere. You back off and do these little steps and build it over time. So I really appreciate and like what you're doing there. And if people want to learn more about it and you, where can they find more information?
So we have the YouTube channel where we talk about topics that we mentioned here, like how to build habits, or why are my habits not sticking? And after 3 days, I'm back into my old ways. We've talked about happiness versus pleasure, and about, we also mentioned like cold plunges and how it can help you rewire your stress response. So that's one of us, of our channels. The YouTube channel. We have Instagram and TikTok. It's App. And of course, you can download the app as well, where you'll find more in-depth information about everything that we've talked so far. And I think for our side, it's very important to just try and, as you say, get those micro wins throughout the day and set yourself for success. So, for example, there's a big thing that we try to encourage is drink more water during the day, stay hydrated. And yeah, and it's so beautiful because it's like, hey, before you go to bed, fill up a glass of water, put it in your nightstand. Once you wake up, you'll see it, you'll drink it. Easy as that. So little movements that you can start making. A lot of people think that the process of growth is like, as you said, in Instagram, you see like self-care Sundays and everything is shiny and beautiful. And it takes work. It takes effort. But effort is not the same as suffering. So, and I think it's engraved in our heads that effort is suffering. It is not. It's just taking little steps during the day.
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, it can be rewarding, right? We are purpose-driven creatures. And so having that purpose and that pursuit of a purpose gives meaning to the day, gives us more.
For sure.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your work and the time today. I'm sure many people will have a lot of takeaways and can follow you and Unconscious Moderation on the app and the YouTube channel and everything else.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time with you. And yeah, hopefully we get to talk again.
I would love that. And to all our listeners, enjoy a lively day. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.